Good morning. God bless you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There's a boy in class one day, and it was in the middle of the year, about this time of year actually, and they were going over math, and the teacher noticed that he was not happy, and so he was asking a math question. He said, "I'm not going to answer that." And the teacher said, "Well, I don't understand. You've been so good all year. What's wrong with that?" He said, "Well, in Sunday school, they told me that Jesus said, forgive 70 times 7. And I've been keeping track. Yesterday we did a math problem, and it was the 490th math problem of the year. And today's the 491st, and I'm definitely not going to answer it." Okay, 70 times 7 is 490. So he forgave her 400. Okay, well, that one didn't go good. If you like math, I guess you like that, like me, but I guess not.
You have to be ordained to understand that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I'm sitting over here going, huh?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Okay, little math biblical humor for you.
Click your slide.
Francie,
Click your slide.
Well, my slide's not going to be right today because we're switching the service. I have a service that's ready.
Well, at least take it off of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
As you can
Take it off that one,
see,
too.
it's Autopilot was the name of it. Okay, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I'll just black screen it. I think I will. I'm going to do that.
You want me to do
There we
it?
go.
There you go.
Anyway, the original lesson today was going to be entitled Autopilot, but there's a lot of references to flying, and I thought because of the two tragedies this week that I don't want to do that right now. I can do it whenever we come back to it. But we haven't finished something that Francie and I started a few months back. Actually, all of us started a few months back. Remember, we had a service that we asked you to ask questions that you would like answered that maybe you haven't had answered before. And so we had a lot of those questions, and we tried to answer in one service, and we were not able to finish them. So I want to go over with Francie. Francie has a couple of questions, too, that I gave her before
Oh,
service.
no, I put them up there. I thought.
You see them up there? Oh, good. You can pick them up. Where are they at?
No, I'm not.
Where are they?
They're right there in the green basket. This is your service.
Well, sweetheart, these two,
Throw me under the bus.
you're prepared to, you know how to answer those.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I want to go back and remind you all what this practice was for. And the practice was for you all getting answers that you may have asked yourself and wanted to know about unity or metaphysics for a while. And I wanted to reread the definition of metaphysics that Fillmore has in the Revealing Word. It says, metaphysics, the systematic study of the science of being, that which transcends the physical. That's the easy answer, that which transcends the physical, which a lot of us forget sometimes. By pure metaphysics is meant a clear understanding of the realm of ideas and their legitimate expression. So, you all wrote a bunch of questions about that. And if you wrote the question and you wanted to expand on it, that's fine. Just raise your hand or whatever, and we can do that. But one of the questions that I was going to start with was an easy one, for me at least, so that's why I thought. And I gave you some that you like, so I'm going to let you answer them. Are all prophets called by God? Well, the word prophet means that you were called by God, but I think the more important, so yes is the answer to the question, are all prophets called by God? But you have to decide what or who a prophet is. I mean, if you think about a prophet, usually we're thinking about, I suppose, people in the Bible, aren't we? When you think of a prophet, I don't know if that's what you think of or not, but usually I would think most people think of somebody in the Bible. Jesus was a prophet, but some people can say Jesus was whatever, more than that or whatever. You can say whatever. If you go to the Islam belief, Muhammad was supposedly the last prophet of Allah. That's their belief. And so most Christians believe that Jesus was the final prophet. But he didn't ever say that, so he really didn't believe that either. Jesus during his teachings was always a Jew. He never was a Christian. So he never was one that was putting himself on a pedestal and saying, here I am, look at me, I'm the one. I mean, even though you can, Christianity has kind of twisted the teachings a little bit as far as the only way through the Father is by me. It didn't mean by me the personality, it meant by me the individual, which is the Spirit. So was he a prophet? Yes. Was he a way you can get to your understanding of your Christhood? Yes. And when we look at a prophet, we have to think of, hopefully on your spiritual journey, you'll get to a point where you think of, how am I a prophet? Not because you speak to somebody or speak at a lectern or something or wherever. How are you a prophet? And just as Jesus taught, a prophet is how they live. So if you live the life of a prophet, then you are a prophet, whether you're written about or not. It doesn't really make a difference. Because what is a prophet? Going back to the question, are all prophets called by God? Yes. And you're here, I hope, because you were called by God to come here, aren't you? I hope you were. You're called by God to come here. I hope you recognize that and accept that, because if you accept that, then it makes it easier for you to understand more how spiritual you are. Because you have to get to that point where you do have to accept your spirituality. And I hope we're there. And if not, we can continue to work on it to be there. Now, Francie had some questions here that she's going to answer. Yes, you are. Because you like these. Sweetheart, these are good questions for you.
You do another one.
My next one's a heavy one.
Well, good, do it.
No.
And I'll think about the question.
Okay.
You showed
I'll let you have some more time.
She's just not gonna do it.
She's just has to think. I'm not throwing you under the bus, sweetheart. You know the answers to those. Okay, this is one that a lot of people think about probably, and it's interesting. So if you wrote this, just kind of raise your hand a little bit. In unity, or either one, I'd really like to know. But anyway, in unity, what's the reason Christ was crucified? And in the parentheses it says religious, to cleanse our sins, saved by his blood. Well, this is a good question, a very good question. I'm sure one that all of us have had once in our life. But it's in unity speak, it is asked incorrectly. And I'm not getting on to anybody who asked it, because that's the way we've been taught. But it says, in unity, what's the reason Christ was crucified? Going back to the first question I was trying to explain a minute ago. Our spirit, which is Christ, cannot be ever crucified. Christ was not crucified on the cross. Jesus, the man, was. Do you see the difference? Your spirit, if you believe your spirit's going to live on forever, which I think most people in Christendom does, which we call the Christ, then the spirit was not, still lived on. It was not crucified. It did not die on that day. Do you follow me? So if we understand that, then we can rephrase the question, which is okay. Then we can say, in unity, what's the reason Jesus was crucified? And then you can, if you separate the two and you understand the two as far as Christ, because and this is going into the seminary stuff, which you don't need to know, but anyway, there's 4 different things. Jesus Christ, Christ, and Christ Jesus. So, and they all mean something different. Okay? So the reason those were separated and defined as far as Fillmore was concerned is because you read those in the Bible, okay? And they all have different meanings by how it was written like that. Either Jesus Christ, Christ Jesus, or the Christ, okay? So they mean something different. And of course, if you read books or read an article, whatever you read, if you have 2 different authors, then you may like one, you may not like another, whatever it is, but you understand that they write differently, right? I mean, we've all been in a situation where something has happened, and your best buddy may be right next to you, seeing the same thing happen, and both of you have a different viewpoint of it, right? And so, you could even say, how can you say that? That isn't what happened. And that's because that's what you saw, and that's what they saw. And it's not necessarily who's right and who's wrong. It's just the way they saw it. So if you have different authors, which we do in the Bible, then they wrote their idea of spirituality different. And it came to them differently. Just like we're all prophets, if we look at our spirituality, then we understand that we have an understanding of God that's unique to us, right? Because you're created uniquely by God. So if that's the case, then you have a unique perspective, which is only yours. And it's important for that perspective to be expressed. And so when we get to the point where we are looking at each other and saying, oh, that's a bad person, that's a good person, all this stuff, we're losing focus of our Christ self. Because that's an expression that needs to be expressed, and that's an expression that needs to be expressed. Until we understand that, humanity's always going to have the problem of good and bad, evil and good, and all that stuff that we don't really have, but we do because our human emotions have gotten involved, our personality has gotten involved. Each one of us can get our feelings hurt, which is part of our personality. And when we do, we usually attach that to something. And so when we attach that to something, we may go on in life, years down the road, and then have that feeling come up again, and we really don't know what triggered it. And it's because of something happened, a long time ago. Our subconsciousness is interesting, but as we teach in Unity, we have 3 different forms of consciousness, and it's not the same as psychology, although it is similar, very similar. It's the consciousness, which is our awareness of things. Subconsciousness, which is something that has been blazoned in our memory, good or bad. It doesn't have to be only bad. That's in there that will respond to certain circumstances that we face in the consciousness. And our superconsciousness, which is our direct connection to God, or our direct connection to the divine, which is part of us too. So when we look at all those, we have to figure out what we are allowing, because we, believe it or not, a lot of people don't understand this, but you control your own subconsciousness. You're not aware of it all the time, but you do control your own subconsciousness. When one of those feelings comes up that makes you feel yucky for whatever that means, whatever way it makes you feel yucky, and you would stop and explore why that feeling came up, then you'd hopefully be able to find out, and sometimes you need a trained professional to help you, but hopefully find out what caused that originally, and then rewrite that story in your subconsciousness. Because something that makes you feel yuck from your subconsciousness is taking some of your power. And you control your power. And if you don't take control of the power that makes you feel yuck, then you're not going to have control of all your power. And you want to have control of all your power to direct it more to, if I feel yucky about this, then what does my divine mind say about it? What does the super consciousness say about that? Not the feeling yucky part, but the situation that happened. Okay? And then you can rewrite it and make it different. So back to the original question, and it does not, I've said many times, that it doesn't bother me personally to have someone say that they were saved by Jesus dying on the cross and saved by his blood. It does not bother me if that gets that person into their spirituality, an understanding of their spirituality. Do they need to continue that study? In my opinion, yes, of course they do. They need to come up to another understanding of it. But, whatever starts the study is a good thing, not a bad thing. So whoever wrote that's a great question. You ready? Try one?
I don't know why I have to do your survey.
Because this is yours.
No,
This is, okay.
I will say one thing, though, about you mentioned, and I heard a kind of a noise back here, a sigh or something, but you said Jesus Christ, Christ Jesus, and the Christ.
Right.
So Jesus is the man. This is the quick, easy version that we had to learn for testing. Jesus is the man. Jesus Christ was Jesus expressing from the Christ within him that sounded enlightened and was healing and doing all these things. Christ Jesus was the ascended Jesus when Jesus rose from the dead. And the Christ is what we all have within us. And that Jesus taught us that the Christ is within all of us. So that, and I like to think of it as like that connection within us that is connected to our soul, connected to the super consciousness, connected to God. So that's
where did Christ come from? Where did not the person, the word?
It is in the Bible.
Yeah.
I know, but do we know why Christ?
Well,
why Jesus?
Well,
it was a name, I think.
Because,
No,
but
it
Christ
wasn't a
wasn't
name
his
for a person.
name.
It's the
Huh?
Christ, the anointed one.
Yes,
Okay, is
but,
that
you know,
what it
there's-
means? Okay.
Right.
Right. Well, there's different, even in the Old Testament, there are different words for God, Jehovah, and okay.
Yahweh.
Yeah.
And,
And so, and they do mean something different.
I'm not doing
But anyway, okay, I'll do that one. I'll let you do that one. This is the one.
This is an easy one.
Good. That's what I thought. See, I
How
told
do you learn to trust your instincts?
Not for everybody. It's not easy though.
Well, no, but it's easy to answer.
Okay.
And I think the short answer for me would be your gut feeling. Your intuition is really kind of a spiritual thing that we have within us that we can develop and that we can really give attention to, because it's just like when you go to a door and you're going to go outside, but you get that gut feeling, I don't think I should go out there right now, for whatever reason. I know that's maybe not something that has happened to you, but maybe it's driving and all of a sudden you know you shouldn't go a certain way. That's your instinct speaking up to you, so it's like a gut feeling. But the whole idea of wisdom and the power of wisdom is in your stomach area. And even if you take and put I always did this with the kids in youth church, but put your finger in your belly button and wiggle it, and you start getting that little kind of weird feeling. That's the nerve endings are actually connected to the power of wisdom in your body, and that's telling you that this is not a good thing, right? It gives you that weird feeling. And so we can pay attention to that and activate that more in our lives just by asking for guidance too. By saying, okay, God, what should I do in this situation? What is going on? And like I said last week, not let the human condition get in the way, because we can make it all about us if we want to, or we can let it be a divine direction. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Throw me under the bus.
The wheels go around in there. Anyway,
You answer the next one that you tried.
I will. I've got some others here though. Okay. Is metaphysics in the Bible? Yes, it is. Do I have a direct thought on that as far as what an example? Not right off the top of my head, except parables. Parables, are called that because they aren't meaning exactly what Jesus was talking about. In fact, all prophets have done that when they've been written about, have had more meaning to it than what just the words say. So, when people read the Bible literally, that's fine, but you need to elevate your. It wasn't written as a literal book. A lot of people say that criticize the Bible say, well, it's not a history book. Well, yes and no. It's not. It's not a precise history book. What is? History always goes to the winners of whatever. Usually we talk war about war when you talk about it. Do you think what you learned in school about World War II would be the same thing that you learned in school about World War II if the Germans had won? No, it wouldn't be the same thing at all. We would have been the bad guys, right? And so, whoever writes anything is coming from their own perspective. But the metaphysics in the Bible are in the Bible, and they do mean more than one thing. And the parables is an example, I guess.
Well, I think just the word metaphysics, beyond the physical.
Right.
So you have to look at everything, every story as it's more than just what is happening in the physical being.
Well, I can think of something, I guess, and it's really not, it is metaphysical, but it's only metaphysical for us. It wasn't metaphysical for the people at the time. because the time context means something too. I've shared different stories about what Jesus taught as far as what they actually mean. And the slap in the face is always one that I think brings it to light fairly easily, is that when Jesus was talking about the turn the other cheek, is what it is the parable of the teaching of Jesus. But the idea of turning the other cheek, a lot of people, the majority of people actually think that, that means just don't let someone that offends you or does something against you bother you, and just don't let it become part of you. Don't try to get revenge and everything like that. Really, that's not what Jesus was saying. When he said turn the other cheek, he was talking about, first of all, the Roman soldier slapped the man on the left cheek, which everybody, like most people nowadays, not everybody's right-handed, but most people are. So we're always looking at a right-handed person. So if someone slaps someone here and they're right-handed, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to backhand them, right? That's what they did. And so when Jesus said turn the other cheek, he means you're going to have to slap me here if you want to slap me. And in Roman times, that meant, backhanding somebody in Roman times meant that you're less than me, you don't deserve me slapping you with my hand open, okay? So when he said turn the other cheek, he meant you're going to have to look at me as an equal, okay? So that's a lot different story than just turn the other cheek and let me be your doormat, isn't it? It's a lot different story. So the times do make something. Like we say, and I use this example a lot too, and it might be out of vogue now, but, we say things are cool, right? Meaning they're hip, whatever. Neither one of those things 100 years from now are going to be understood that way, are they? If you say that something's cool from, somebody 100 years from now, they're going to think, well, the temperature was tempered. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, it was cool. And that doesn't mean that at all. Okay, so you have to take the time into, understanding and all that stuff. Anyway, so that is metaphysical too, if you look at it that way. So it's beyond what we're talking about in the literal. So this other question that I had, and it's kind of a little bit tricky, but not really, I guess. It says, how does unity teach about communion? It depends on, there's a lot of ways to look at it. How do we teach about it? There's different opinions from different unity ministers and different unity leaders, but there's there's different things on big subjects like this that have different thoughts, and unity as an organization never came out and said, this is what we're going to teach and this is it. Like reincarnation is another big one. Unity, everybody has their opinion on it, but unity did not come out and say, this is the way it is, okay? So it boils down to what your ideas of it are and what your experiences has been. And communion's kind of the same way, in a way. But it's the same, it goes along the way, same as being saved, in my opinion. Because communion, I don't mind having communion. Communion is like a lot of ceremonies, is a wonderful tradition that is beautiful if you look at it that way. But like I said a minute ago, if a unity church has a communion and you're sitting there and looking at it and coming from your background maybe as a Catholic and saying, oh my God, that just reminds me of my Catholicism and it was so terrible and it just brings up this stuff, then what are we doing? We're doing what I said earlier. Something in your subconsciousness has come up and sparked this. It has nothing to do with the communion we're doing right now, right? Actually, communion is coming to church and listening to the lesson and trying to get what? Something good out of it, because it's supposed to be gospel. Now, if someone's up here, if I'm up here and I'm saying you're all going to hell, and you're never going to, if you leave this church before 5 o'clock this afternoon without coming down here and on your bent knee and all this stuff, that isn't good news, is it?
No.
So, I don't control whether you go to hell or not anyway. But
There is no hell.
if you give me the power, if you give me your power to do that, then that's on you. That you're giving me that power. Now, if you give it to me right now, I'm going to say you're all going to go to heaven. Okay? Give it to me. I'm going to give me that power right now. You're all going to heaven.
Yeah.
Come on. There you go. See, now take your power back. Take it back quick. You don't let anybody ever tell you you're going to hell again. Because you know that you're going to heaven. You got your power back, right? You're going to heaven. I don't want all your power. Anyway, so communion is the same way. Communion is a ceremony. We had here, not here in this building, but we had, in fact, it was cool. I liked it. Had a Seder dinner, and we had washing of the feet once. And that stuff is cool, if you ask me. I like it. And some people don't. Okay?
We didn't do washing the feet, we did washing the hands.
Oh, did we wash the hands?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We did communion.
In
Around
here?
Easter time,
No,
huh?
we did it all town.
We did it the
Oh.
whole time, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
because I'm like, I don't remember doing that.
But
It was in-
communion, to me, also, like when we do potluck every month, to me,
Yeah,
that's
that
communion.
sure
because you're
is.
Coming together in fellowship
Uh-huh.
and love
Mhm.
and sharing, breaking bread.
All right. Now, the real communion, though, is when we are doing whatever we're doing, and we're doing it from a spiritual understanding. That's why I like, the Catholic, a lot of versions of it, but the church version of the communion. That's why the priest or whoever is saying the prayers that they are saying, because we're coming together as a community, as one, to understand our spirituality. So communion can be good, and if you have bad experience with it, then it can be something different for you. But that's, again, your power. So, before I get to any of these, which we've already answered, does anybody have one that they want answered? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in light of Brittany, my friend, the way that she died or made her transition,
That's okay.
I get asked a lot recently, where's the divinity in that? Where is...
Yeah, why do good things or bad things happen to good people and all that stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a biggie too.
Huh?
You got any more to add to it?
No, I just struggle. I mean, I try to answer the best I can, but it's like
Yeah. The answer, you don't have to answer to somebody else. You have to answer to yourself. And once you get that down, you'll be able to answer from your understanding of it. And the understanding of why do bad things happen to good people the answer is not one that is one that everybody can take at the same time, and it does take time at times to figure out. Because you could, a loved one makes their transition, and really you could ask that same question about that. Yet, there are times where the person themselves, not saying that she did, but the person themselves know that it is time for them to go to the next understanding of life. There is, I've done plenty of seeing people before they are making their transition, before they're dying, or they are dying and they're going to die and all that stuff. I don't ever give anybody a death sentence. I go in there to pray with them and to see where they are at in their thinking and what they're doing. And there's the gamut, of course, of what people are like. There's people that are scared, not wanting to leave this physical body, and there are people that surprisingly sometimes are ready to go and they don't want to stay anymore. And there are the accidents, the things that happen suddenly. But all of those have to do with and it's not like God is calling that person to come right now, but it is too. Okay, it's you got to have to understand. Spirit is so funny because when we understand that we have spirit within us, what does that say to our human brain? It says that you are more than just the human body. And the human brain doesn't necessarily agree with that.
God bless you.
Okay? Because the human brain is the human brain, right? And so, but if you study enough and put yourself to that idea, then it'll come a little bit easier to understand that we all are doing what we are supposed to do right here and right now. And if we continue to do that, then when we go to another form of life, does not make really a difference. And why do bad things happen to good people? It doesn't. It's just our perception of what has happened. And I know that that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because we are suffering. When someone, a loved one, a friend goes from us, we are the ones suffering. They are not. And if we really love them and we step back a second and say, you know, they loved us too. Would they want us to go through anguish and pain? No. And it's just a human condition sometimes that we do that. And I'm not, you know, I still, you know, have problems every once in a while with people who passed.
Well, I think too, it was, some of it wasn't like the transitioning or the passing. I mean, you're a little bit more at ease, like when mom, you know.
Right, yeah, you're prepared.
But when you're young like that and the horrific way it happened, it's like I can't explain it I can't explain it. I don't know.
Yeah, and you don't have to know.
Well, I know, but sometimes you
Want to know.
yes.
Your human brain always wants to know.
Yeah.
Always wants to know. And it'll be better. Yes, Layla.
If there is no hell, then where do the people who are bad go after death? Where do their spirits go? Because their bodies there.
Well, you know, I'm hesitant when I say there's no hell, because everybody can have as much hell as they want in their life if they want to. I mean, people can wrap their life
I'm
a
saying
living
when these
hell.
people die,
I know what you're saying. I'm getting that.
when they leave their
Right.
shell. Okay.
Well, first of all, who's saying they're bad? We are, aren't we? Okay? We're saying that they're bad. And so when we say they're bad, we want our justice. And we want there to be a hell then, don't we? We want there to be a hell because they need to go live in it. But maybe they were living in hell here when they were here. Who knows? I don't make excuses for people. I really don't. I wish, you know, everybody knows about my son, and I wish that he would live differently. And hopefully when he gets out of prison, he will. But, you know, that's still going to be up to him. Even though it hurts me personally, which is my personality, I can't let it get to where it's preventing my spirit from expressing to its fullest extent. So when we hold a grudge against somebody, when we hold something that person is bad because they've done something either directly to me or to somebody else, that's giving our power away, and it's not a good choice on our part, because we can use our power in so many different beautiful ways. And you know, it can happen to anybody, no matter where they're at, what position they're in, or anything. So the answer to your question is, and this is what people don't like, is they're not going to hell. They're going to be part of the same big spiritual entity that you're going to be a part of.
Okay.
But you won't. Everybody tries to put God as the old man in the sky, and spirit, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to meet my parents, I'm going to do that. When you become full spirit, your personality is gone. You're gone. I mean, it's not that scares some people and they don't like it, but your personality is gone. Your individuality, your spirituality, your goodness, your full 100% goodness is what is alive. And so you will mingle with people that are people, not people, I said it there myself, with other spirit that is just the same as you, and you're going to love it. But you can have that same love here. That's the whole point when we understand our spiritualness, that we can share and be that same love here. And so one of the great opportunities is exactly what you said. When we think somebody's bad and they need to go to hell, how can I change my thinking about that? Because I don't want to give them any more power. Then you can get to the point where, you know, I'm not giving them any power. Look at all this power I've got. And I can spend it for more good, which is what we're here to do, even though we forget that sometimes. Yes?
This kind of goes to what you were talking about following your gut instincts. when we have people in our life that struggle with anxiety and those human type conditions, and you try to help them through, or just be a sounding board for them to validate their feelings or their fears, but also urge them to follow. You probably get where I'm going with this. Basically, like trying to help people that are struggling, and myself that struggle with anxiety, and when those gut feelings are driving the ship, or your actual spiritual side, like how to determine, especially when you're going through something, it's hard to determine which one is guiding you.
Right.
I think about the guy in that old school movie where he's in the bubble because he's scared of the world.
Oh, that's John Travolta when he was young.
John Travolta, yeah, like big guy in the bubble. You guys know what I'm talking about. But like I think about that analogy because his anxiety about his fear of the world is what's driving him to be in this bubble. And I feel like a lot of the people around me struggle with those things.
Right.
And it's hard to be like it's hard to be there for people you care about in those moments when you feel more grounded, in a caring.
You said a key word though, fear.
Yeah.
Fear, and I always like to say the opposite of trust or faith is fear. So the minute we turn back on the power of faith and say, oh, I'm one with God, then fear starts dissipating away. And fear is what causes all that. The anxiety, the stress, the worries, all of that turmoil that we don't need is from fear. So if we start erasing fear, chip away at fear, and bring up faith, we start trusting ourselves more and trusting the direction more. Which is important.
Our human brain wants an answer. And sometimes there isn't an answer right in this moment, and you have to look for it. It's hard, and that's where that is correct, Francie, that we need to go back to faith. But you're saying it right, it's hard to try to help somebody without pushing your own ideas on them. Because they have to find out for themselves. Right. And and saying that can be even a trigger, Well, you're not helping me at all. And that's where the church can get in trouble too, where they're saying we need to come back to faith instead of fear, which is true, yet if you say that, then that church doesn't help me at all. They just want me to come to church, right? Well, that's not what we're saying. And if we're talking psychologically, we'd say it's a very complex organism. But if we're talking spiritually, we're saying it's not complex. It's a release of things. And we have to learn how to release. And here's the word that we have to learn more to be nice about it. It's a good thing instead of a bad thing. Is we have to learn how to surrender. Surrender is a key word in faith. And it's something that we have to learn how to do. Surrender the idea that I have what I'm thinking about a person in a negative way, the right thought. Okay, surrender that thought. See what happens when you surrender that thought. A lot of times when we have something against somebody, that person at some point, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, I'm sure you have, we're all old enough we have, I think. That person that you have a negative feelings toward will come up to you and say something like, and compliment you, do something, and you'll think, that person never wasn't feeling my madness at him at all. And you'll understand that and you'll say, that was a waste of energy. Wow, I didn't like that guy for years, and he seems to be all right. Well, that's what happens sometimes. We have to do exactly what y'all are saying, is we have to surrender the idea that we have it right first. And that's hard to do. Because we've all experienced things in our life, and we know how we want our life to go. And I'll bring up my son again, That's not how he wants to live. So I got to get rid of the idea that this is how he's going to live to make it better. That's not how he's going to live. Shut up, Warren. That's not how he's going to live. Let that person live their life and see if the results are what they want. It's not what I want, but it doesn't have to be what I want. What, Maria?
Okay, I have
kind of an answer for Sandy.
Okay, good.
My friend was going through a divorce and it was just really hard and, you know, ugly. And her daughter is 17-year-old, accident and died. So it was just devastating for, of course, for everybody. It was something that nobody expected. But at the end, it made the whole family get together, and the relationship between the husband and her, it just kind of fixed. So we don't know exactly why things happen.
Right.
But I mean, it healed the relationship and it healed a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Well, one thing that I do for me, would be this is a physical world and physical things happen. I think that's where God lets us do that, you know. So, and then it was her choice, as Reverend Francis and I were talking, her choice whether to stay or go. And of course, that probably her body, she's like, no, I don't want to hang out in this body, I'm going, you know. So that's how I kind of explain it. But, you know, you're right, they're a close-knit family.
And your explanation was good enough at that time, okay? Don't beat yourself up because you don't have the right answer. I'll be with you in just a second. I want to just share real quick. When my mom my mom had been sick for, I don't know, probably a couple of years. And she'd been going to the doctor for quite a while, a year at least, this one doctor. And she said she went in there finally after this year, and him getting, you know, disgusted about it was right when actually she was one of the first people diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I don't know if you've heard that before.
Wow.
It wasn't around before this, which was what, the 90s,
Yeah.
I guess. Anyway, he, after this one office visit, she went in and said, listen, she'd lost a lot of weight. She said, I just can't do this anymore. Something's wrong. He was mad. She told me about all this during the time when she got home. She said he put his clipboard down, you know, kind of slammed it down and said, listen, the only thing that we can do for you is either put you in the hospital or just forget it all. Oh. And so she said, okay, I'll go to the hospital. So she went in the hospital, and after some tests, he came in pretty much sheepishly, you know, really white, and said, you know, I don't know how I missed this, but you've got all sorts of cancer in your stomach. And so you've only got a few weeks to live. And so get your things in order, he said. Anyway, so, you know, the reason I tell you that story is when my brother and my sister and I got together, you know, at the hospital, and we're all talking, and we're actually crying about it and all this stuff. And we were... Let me get this out. We were just, you know, hugging each other like this, the three of us. And I said something just came out. It was a joke. And it was like all of us started laughing, and it was like, I'm not kidding you. For me personally, and I know it happened for them too, it was like 100 pounds we were carrying just dropped off. It just went away. And so, you know, there are things that we can do in the physical and in the spiritual that will answer our mental or physical mind's questions that don't have to be answered anyway, but there are. What were you going to say, Lorraine?
Yeah, my question was that, you know, when a person, you know, departs from this planet, you know, and they, you know, like now it's just this big issue with the funerals. Like I don't want to be cremated, right. And I want to have a funeral. So my question was, you know, on cremation, you know, they think that the body is going someplace else. So I would like to clarify that. You know, like when you transition from here, you put in a casket, doesn't, you finish it off, what?
Right, yeah, well, there used to be a stigma on cremation, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Used to be a bad stigma on cremation. Thank goodness it isn't anymore, because it really doesn't make a difference. Your spirit leaves your body. Your body is, and funerals are celebrations of life, which there is a difference. Francie and I were kind of excited. I know this is weird to a lot of people, but I was, because we're used to it, to have this door in this church. Because this is actually a funeral door. This is where you bring the casket in. And so, I know it's weird.
The casket door.
But the funeral is when the body is present. A celebration of life is when it's either an urn or something else. It's not the body isn't present. So as far as definition, that's what that is. But there's no, the spirit has left either one. So, you can say, well, where is it and all that stuff. Well, I've experienced spirits at their own celebration of life or a funeral. Yeah. And, that makes me weird to you. I'm sorry, but that's just true. It's just been my experience. And there are people along that same line, since we're on this, and you're kind of talking about reincarnation there, even though we disagree on that, so what? But I used to be able, when I was young, I used to be able to see auras really well. And I haven't been for a long time, and I gotta quit saying I haven't been, because I'd like to kind of see that again. It was really something cool. And so I started learning what the colors meant and all that stuff. It was really, really cool. So it depends on how in tune you are with your spirituality, of what you can do in your spirit, in this life. Okay? So what else? Go ahead, Sandy. Did you have one?
Would you tell them to quiet down?
Yeah, they're kind of loud.
She thought he
We
said
got some
horror.
rowdy people in here. Go
She
ahead,
thought
Ken.
he said horror.
Said what?
Instead of aura, she thought,
You said horror.
Horror.
I used to be able to say horror around
All
here.
right. Go ahead, Ken.
I would just like to say, I'm a nurse, but I took care of both my mom and dad at home.
Mm-hmm.
And even before their bodies succumbed, they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mom was gone, 2 days? Because I told my brothers, I said, you probably have a limited time to speak to your mother, because she's checking out.
Right.
And same with my dad. I remember when he, it was probably a couple of days also.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, he checked out. Both of their bodies were still pumping at that time, but they were gone.
How many people have seen the movie? Probably not anybody in here. Heaven Can Wait. It's about a football player.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is exactly what you're saying. The whole premise on that movie was, the guy died. He goes into a tunnel on his bike, working out, and then the car hits him and kills him, okay? Well, supposedly. He goes to heaven, and they find out that the body didn't die in the accident. And so he should have been back in that body still. But he checked out before that happened to avoid the pain or whatever. Anyway,
So they have to find him.
so they end up having to find him another body and all this stuff. But this is, spirit, I'm going to make myself sound weird to you, I know that. But anyway, spirit is unlimited. I think we can all agree on that. And if spirit is unlimited, then why do we place limits on what we can do? Now, we can place limits on maybe on our physical body of what we can do with it. But if you understand, or if you believe in the unlimitedness of spirit, then I think you can even lift those higher. But I believe, and this is what's going to make it sound weird, in the fourth dimension. I believe that you can raise your spiritual intuitiveness, awareness, to be in the fourth dimension and in the third. We're in the third dimension in our physical bodies at the same time. So what would that mean? Would mean like if I were doing it right now, then I would be, my spirit. Well, it's like the movies on the hospital where the guy's looking up,
Yeah, like out of body.
from the building to see
Yeah.
himself.
Mhm.
That's the same thing.
Out of body.
That's the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is your spirit is unlimited. We know that, and it can do things I mean, to
I
be
think
quite
a lot of
honest.
people have had that experience though in
Yeah.
prayer or meditation
Yeah.
or having a spiritual.
But how
experience.
many are
Walking the
willing to
labyrinth.
admit it and talk about it, see? That's where our physicalness gets in the way and says, oh, people think I'm weird. Of course you guys do anyway, so anyway, I'm not worried about that.
So
The ship has already sailed.
is it that, what do you think about this? At that point in time, because when we go back to spirit, we don't have that personality. So how does that spirit know this personality and to?
Well, there's still some touch, some link there, yeah. There is, definitely. You're right. Yes, Leela.
What is Unity's take on reincarnation?
There isn't one. There specifically is
It's
not
all
one.
over the place.
Because it is all over the place. Well, I'd say it's both one or the other usually. I mean, not too many people, I don't know what you believe if you do or you don't. Because Leela, there was a lot of, in Unity's early days, there were a lot of strong leaders that believed differently on it. And I think that's why Fillmore did not go, put down and say one way or another. Now, if you ask me what the Fillmores thought, I think that Charles probably ended up thinking that it was something to that. But early on, I don't think he did. That is probably one of the only things that we may disagree on, Charles Fillmore.
But Fillmore had that Native American
Yes.
experience, so.
Yeah, he was raised by Native Americans,
Indians, yeah.
So when they actually took him because he was blonde haired and light skinned, and he had broken his hip, and these Indians came and got him because they saw him as a spiritual being because of his coloring and everything. It's like a towhead, white blonde hair. So they took him and worked with him and stuff, and then when he finally got better, they brought him back. But he learned a lot of their teachings and stuff, and the spiritual aspect of life. It started with that experience, and then they brought him back to his family. And his hip had healed. It still made his leg was still shorter. But years later, he healed his leg to grow and be more in line with the other.
Yeah, and yes, I hope you heard what Francie said as far as healed his leg. And yet, when he made his transition, the leg was shorter. So
Because at one time he wore, like one of those big, remember how they always did those big platforms
Right.
on 1 foot?
Yeah.
that was for medical. So it's again in his time. You have to remember it's different at different times. We are experiencing what we are experiencing during our lifetime, and we think that is the norm, and it is for this time. Yet it wasn't not very long ago. Back then, when he lived, people gave up their kids because they couldn't afford them.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, but they were doing it because out of love, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They wanted the kid to have more. And so, you just have to think about all of the things. That's why I'm hesitant to say this person or that person is bad. You don't know what they've gone through. You really don't. Even if you're standing with them all their life, you don't know what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
My brother and I are love each other to death, and we're a lot different. We're a lot different. So anyway, we're kind of done anyway. But
Yep.
I want you to know I appreciate all of y'all participating in this, and I hope that we got some questions.